can we have your own, your responses to all of this in the light of
Recording in progress.
the light of the affirmation and reaffirmation of our commitment to a country that will grow and endure? This is the question for everyone. This is what we are doing here now, right?
Thank you, everyone. The day is far gone, and I thank you that you are all still seated here, and a few others have joined us. Everything that I've heard, of course, is relevant and is important. The only aspect I'm here to hear, at least emphasize, is the role of the people. Something like that couldn't have been done without the people, the masses being involved. There was a point at the CLO that at least those of us who came from the student movement, don't forget, our generation literally ended our career in the university with the massive 1989 anti-SAP protests. So we're still very much in the high of that, getting the people in the streets. So when June 12 came, and with Akaba Shorunzi interim national government idea to try and counter Abacha's Babangida, then later Abacha's self-succession plan, we realized that there was no way this thing could be done with just press conferences, press releases. So the question is, how were we going to get the people to the streets? Campaign for Democracy, CD, was the actual hero of that struggle, at least at the general, what we call the Popular Front, was the Popular Front for that struggle. And it was deliberately conceived as a coalition to bring in as many organized groups of workers, market women, traders, even professionals. I think the name of Pablo Tomi has been mentioned already, this evening. Even professionals, who call it concerned professionals. So it was wide-ranging, big umbrella coalition to bring as many people as possible together for the minimum projects of resisting the military to ensure that we're out of power and that this tyranny ended. So it was on that basis that actually the CLO, which again is another hero of this struggle, literally gave us an underground secretariat, which in Maria Street, where the Campaign for Democracy meetings were always taking place, of course, the SSS, the police, and they would come and raid. So we needed to have an underground secretariat. I'm happy to say that my one-room apartment that Professor Sagi had given me in Alaka Estate became the underground secretariat for that. And we had typewriter. Chima Obani just even left his house in Fadeyi, and we were living together to man the secretariat, for that. Which, in my view, this is not to claim credit for it. I'm just saying we needed, as a way of organizing, a place where we could try organize, relate to people, meet without outside the gaze of the military. So the people came in. And at that point, the story changed. Because without them coming in, we would probably have gone on with another 10, 20 years of military rule. Now, the funny thing about this is that we had actually opposed the June 12 election, if we remember correctly. We had actually called for a boycott. That this was just an attempt to hoodwink the Nigerian people again, and that the military would be back. So we had called for a boycott. Until Atom Zeribe's group, Association of Better Nigeria, the Kanu Wankwos, used earnestly yen for Abacha. So when we saw the third eye, so when we saw at that point we realized that if we continued on that trajectory of saying boycott the election, we'll be playing right into the hands of the military. That was when we made the U-turn. So we didn't vote. I didn't vote. But even though I didn't vote, I became a defender of the election to the point of people being jailed for it. So I guess the reason why I wanted to mention this is that if we are talking about what to do now, we must begin to talk about the people themselves, how to bring the people back into being involved. Because without getting the masses involved, we will wring our hands, we will cry all the tears we want to cry, we will lament, but we will still be in the same place. And on that point, I think the question of how to do that kind of organizing with the new media, with the disinformation, the capacity for disinformation, which are reaching levels that are almost impossible to counter. I don't know, but we really have to think about that. Maybe there are lessons to be drawn from the, what's the name for it now, the SARS, the end SARS, the end SARS. The lessons to be drawn from end SARS. That's where we should begin to think of how to move forward, to get the people involved, but at the same time, learn the formidable obstacles that we're going to have to deal with the massive disinformation machine that social media has become, even as much as it is also a massive organizing tool. So the two things seem to be equally balanced in terms of their capacity for either good or mischief. So how are we going to be able to get the people involved when they can be easily misled? When they can be, when they can, the same media can be used to rather accentuate the fractures, the differences, the very same problems that we are against. I think that's our task, really. But without the people, we're not going to move forward.
Thank you very much, Ogaga. Thank you. Yeah, Professor Akaini, do you want to take up that challenge he has thrown? How do we convert our lamentations to movement, effective movement?
Well, I think that essentially one of the problems that we've had, is ad hoc organizing. We've not been able to build resilient organization. So we throw ourselves almost like a knee-jerk approach. We throw ourselves at issues, and once the heat is off, everybody relax again. You go back to where the mode you were before. That's one major problem. And there's also a lesson to be drawn from organizing for pro-democracy movement in the 90s. The mass mobilization that we achieved in the months of July till General Abacha gave up was not achieved in one day. I recall very well, sometimes about 4 of us, Dr. Becker written a press statement, and that's all. But we had a media then that had a crop of progressive elements. That is absent today, and I think Babafemi Ojudu, referenced that when he was talking about when press statements are issued, they are regurgitated on the pages of the newspaper. No analyzing, no scrutiny, and all of that. So we don't have that today. And when you also look at the media machine, the ownership pattern, has changed. The establishment elements who, for the most part, are perpetrating, the contradictions of society today, they control the media. So that's a problem. But I think that we need, a community of activists, that are permanent on that job. We have some cadres like that. Late Rotimi Owebi, from the student movement, he became, almost a full-time activist with the labor militant. So we had that. But don't also forget that at that time we were all young, men and women. And we threw ourselves into the struggle, and we did all that, we had to do at that time. But right now, I'm a father with children. And my children are just at that age that, I threw myself into the street, burning tires, and daring, the police and soldiers. So we need to cultivate a new crop, of activists. And I use the word professional activist in the sense that when you have them, they have to also be on salary. You have to pay them. I ask myself, even as a professor in the university, from past experiences. If you give me 1 month, I can mobilize the entire South. You know? And I ask myself, what am I paid as a professor in the university? And if somebody is giving me that money just for the role of mobilization, and I think that we are going to make a lot of impact. So we should also be creative and be looking at that, you know, that aspect of it. Now, much of what we did in the 80s, 90s was also ideologically driven. And people seem to forget that. Of course, there were shades of ideological positions. But there was a left-wing orientation in much of those mobilizations. You know, so we were socialized to radical ideology. But if you go to our campuses today, you know, I teach practice and theory of Marxism. And sometimes in a semester, I don't find about five students in my class. That's it. And you don't find, even within the academia, you know, academics who can discuss critical theory. And what you find is that whatever the CNN says, that is it. And they also come to the classroom, you know, to tell their students. Because we're supposed to train them for critical thinking. Yeah. When that is not there, you are going to have, you know, zombies. And that is why if you look at the state of the student movement today, you know, you have student union leaders having 25 special advisors. In my time, we used our own pocket money to move about. There was only like official car, you know. And so those are some contradictions, but we need to overcome them by, you know, thinking seriously about this question about having professional, you know, activists who are remunerated. You know, not that you go there, you are looking haggard. I remember in those days in Unilag, they call us, what do they call us? Layabout, when we are mobilizing the students and all of that. So if you go out to mobilize, you are sure that you can have a meal on your table, no matter what happens. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, for that, you know. So Chido, again, turning our lamentations into movement, right? You know, how do we get about doing that?
Thank you, Kule. Except that my brief is to discuss the book, Demonstration of Craze. And I thought that Abdul will be here and we will ask him questions, critical questions about the book, some of the issues that he has raised, and some of the issues that are coming up in my reading of the book. I have written a review of the book. It's a magnum opus, and I commend him for it. About 616 pages. Is not, as we say in our local discipline, no be my mind. 616 pages was there. Yet, having reviewed and read it again and again, I have a number of questions. I'd like to throw them at Abdul. For me, the first question, the book talks about hope and talks about the efforts to destroy hope in Nigeria. But at the end, it's a descriptive book, it's a historical analysis, but there is no prescription. So you get to the end and you are wondering, okay, Abdul, what do you want us to do? What do you recommend? A second question arising from it, I find that the last 4 or 5 chapters, you take on Adam Soshomole severely. It's not one chapter. He has many chapters on Adam Soshomole. He has many chapters on Adam Soshomole. There's a main chapter, but there are references. Yes, at least up to 5 issues that he raises. Very important issues. Very important issues. But my question is, okay, you have been in power as well. This democracy is a demonstration of craze. And you recounted how in the CLO then there was a debate about should we not? Should we not? Unfortunately, the democracy movement did not take part. So we allowed all manner of people to, now that comes back to where Ogaga was. So now that we have made that mistake for 25 years, what are we going to do? What do you recommend? How do we go back? Or how do we rewrite what we failed to write? Those are the 2 critical questions I have for now. I will address others.
Thank you very much.
Well, I think for me, the first place to start is to return back to the late 1980s. And that there is a particular thing we must not forget about the Babangida regime, which we don't make reference to. The Cookie Commission report. Extremely, very, very significant, because we are talking about alternatives. How do you begin to imagine alternatives? Nigeria, this country, through the Babangida regime, and the mass of people, professors, doctors, workers, issued a particular statement. This was 1987. 89-90, the Soviet Union collapsed, because this is very significant. With the trajectory of those 3 years, and now we're talking about a bourgeois democracy that has lasted the past 26 years, it raises another fundamental question. The anti-STAP protest was key, also fundamental. That was what built us as a generation. But the basis of that protest against STAP was not just Babangida, it was the economic neoliberal policies that the Babangida regime introduced to Nigeria. And interestingly, the Tinubu regime has continued with that same program. I wonder why people felt that Babangida was wrong, and now because another name or another person is implementing those same policies, that the country will move a singular inch forward. And this for me is key, because when we talk about going, that those who fought against the military rule didn't partake in that democracy, they couldn't have partaken in it on the basis of the conditions the military had put in place. Don't forget, only 2 political parties. Gani had announced the National Conscience Party before that period. The military, Babangida or the military had repeated that they knew those they would not hand over power to, but they knew, and within that context, even all of the characters who were willing to define their own terms, to also define their own economic program, could not have partaken in this democracy when it started in 1999. But subsequently after that, we must raise, and this is where we must challenge those of us who have been strong enough to become involved in politics. They've become involved in politics on the basis of thinking that this system can be corrected internally from inside. We have a local saying, if you want to catch a monkey, behave like a monkey. But in reality, what we succeed in doing is that the monkey monkeys human beings, and human beings becomes monkey. And this is exactly what has happened for all of the individuals and characters. And because we think we must run away from the hard road. The hard road is that a party of the mass of the people must be built. There's an alternative to capitalism, the ideas of socialism. It's going to be our duty to return back to history. What happened to the Soviet Union? What was the problem with because the Nigerian state is a colonial state. It cannot function for us. Of course, Nigerians have taken over this structure, this state, and they are making it to function, again too, for those outside, and for a set of individuals, a set of what? A who these individuals will be. If they take control of this structure, they cannot but function in this structure. When you read the book by Obafemi, and you took particular incident, the Shakori example, so when he prides himself, in not being openly, of course, on this platform, he says that it's my leader. It's not, at the end of it. But it's a step away. When you read that chapter, you meet with the huge revelation. This same man that we had all of this dossier on is the best of par, for the current regime that is currently in power. You meet with the Fayoshe example, and you begin to ask the fundamental question: what has happened to education? We still live in a society where people still believe that through rituals money could be made, and we are not just talking this at the ordinary ghetto peasant level. For somebody who takes control of the machinery of the states, and to ensure that sacrifices must be made, human being sacrifices must be made in the. This should be enunciating to all of us, but you cannot have it any other way. This system must be brought down, and until we begin to imagine that there is an alternative to private ownership, to private domination of the total wealth of society. And that alternative is that we can bring the entirety of the wealth of our society to public ownership. There's an alternative to a state that fits the interests of members of the billionaire club. The so-called Lagos model, because I think it's important to I stop at that.
Yeah, thank you.
The Lagos model.
How I wish that we have more time. I mean, the temperature is just beginning to rise. I don't have this kind of temperature, but we don't have the time. Very quickly before Abdul responds to Shido, we have two newly minted students here, Chinelo Mora. Let's hear from Chinelo. For 2 minutes. Why Chinelo? Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Let's see you now. Fantastic.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So, reading this book from a Gen Z point of view.
Which of them?
The demonstration of grace.
Demonstration of grace.
Yes, sir.
Where is everybody getting crazy with demonstration of grace?
I must say that when I first saw the book, the first thing that came to my mind was Fela Kuti's Democracy. So I was like, because I once wrote a particular column about that particular song, and I was like, this book sounds like it's going to be an interesting thing to read. So when I was reading it, I came across the parts where he mentioned a brief about the Civil War, and he said he had like a cousin who was part of it, but he died along the road. So and then looking at it, he said demonstration of grace, and then he talked about the military rule and how the transition into democracy. But my own point of view, I think that we are in a system whereby it is looking like as if we are offered democracy. Like you're putting on democracy, but what is actually in it is military. Because in a sense whereby they tell you your vote is being counted. You have the freedom of speech, expression, and all these things, but you are being monitored. And when you speak, they use it against you. And when you even vote, your vote is not even counted at the end of the day. They are the ones that decide inside who's going to be the winner. They just come out to say, oh, democracy, look at what we are doing. So I was reading the book and listening to him today, it occurred to me that in their own time, they really fought so deeply with pen. And I was like, oh, this is where the saying came from. The pen is mightier than the sword. And it was so enthroned how they actually use the pen to pull down a lot of things at that time. But during this our time and now, I don't think we want to engage in such kind of thing, because thinking deeply again, I thought, okay, at that time, the internet was not so wide as it was. How did you extract all this kind of information that made them go after your life? Not to talk of now that there is internet, and you know, even though we have this internet, people are not coming out to really speak, because even when you speak, no, they come after you in one way or the other. You know, the internet has been in such a way that the youth of our time are like, okay, after the NSAS, we no longer want to participate in anything that has to do with so much of the politics. We just want to, like, you know, make this money and mind our business. That I need this country for them so that they can have fun. But sir, I have a question for you. As a journalist, as someone who was once a journalist, and then you went through the part of politics. You know, at that time you were really digging deep. You know, you wanted to bring out a lot of evidences to show that yes, I'm a good journalist. So, was it at any point, had you been into politics, a politician, that you felt like there are certain things that the public should not know, or something like that? You know, that you certain things you don't want to bring out to the public, whereby you don't want the journalists to even hear about it, or if anybody gets to hear about it, it's going to like spark some kind of hate or something, fight. So that's my question for you, sir.
Thank you. Nathaniel, where is Nathaniel? Just, 2 minutes before.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nathaniel. So I would like to talk a bit about this book, and I must say that, wow, that's the generation of your generation, sir. Babafemi Ojudu is generation that's full of, permit me to say, crazy people. The reason why I'm saying that is because, where did they get those courage of facing this government, this military government? These people literally go to their offices, their homes, to look for them, to kill them. And then instead of running away, this same Mr. Babafemi Ojudu still comes back to Nigeria to still do something that will make him, run from one place to the other. He mentioned something. He said, I think it's a Japan word. He said, kamikaze journalism, which means dangerous journalism. Okay. While growing up, my parents used to tell me, stay away from dangerous things. Why will I see kamikaze journalism and still practice it? Questions like these, they are meant to be answered. Yes, you're trying to do so much for people to understand what the governments are doing that are wrong, but then, well, that's fine. Also, I would like to say that there are some parts of this book that I read. For example, he mentioned it's the news gathering with Tinubu. Wow. After the man recorded this conversation with the unknown person, the Jewish lawyer, and he had that thing in mind that this man should just sleep off, or he should just forget. He had it in mind to steal that thing from him, and then it happened. And then he has no fear. He still said, okay, yes, I will go to Nigeria and publish this thing. And Tinubu told him, Baba, if you do this thing, you are going to get killed. He said, hey, let me die. Why? Now, I want to relate that to this generation. Now, we are in a generation whereby my generation are looking for money. We are looking for money. And I'll relate that to the visitation to the hilltop at Babangida's house. He said him, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, and some of his friends, that Babangida, invited them to the house, and then they were talking about how these people were fearless, and then where were they getting this information from. And then when they finished that discussion and all, while they were leaving, he handed some bags to them, and they refused. My generation will not refuse it. I'm sorry. They won't. because there's so much struggle on, I want money. And then even the parents now, they are forgetting about the tradition, the culture of their various background. That money is not everything. They are forgetting, they are pressuring their children to, okay, you have to find a way to make money. So how can we inculcate that kind of thinking into this generation? It is very sacrosanct, because this generation, they are looking for money and they are looking for ways to get rich, and they believe that before they can do anything, we just need money to push on. And lastly, I would like to say that I don't know if he's still here. I have a question for him. Yes, he said journalism is love. He loves journalism so much that he can never leave journalism and everything. But he left journalism. Why? And then the people, some of the people he was criticizing then, he ended up working with them. Why is that? So finally, sir, I studied mass communication at Yaba College of Technology. I always wanted to be a journalist. But then when I heard about how Dele Giwa died, I said, I think I'll just manage to say, I always wanted to be a journalist, but I'll do something else that is related to mass communication. So that's the fear in the generation that we are now. But they don't have that fear. So please, Mr. Wherever he is, if he's seeing this, he should please answer that question. You were criticizing them. How come you ended up working with them? And you said you love journalism so much. What happened? You left it. Thank you very much.
Okay, very short. Our moderator had to answer an urgent call. But at this moment, we're going to go to, he asked me to call on Abdul to respond briefly, and the emphasis was on briefly to the questions that were posed to him by Chido. But it's the answer to the urgent call, but before he comes back, so briefly to respond
okay,
to Chido.
Thank you very much. Let me take stuff from you. You were talking about the respecting. The
aspect where you move from journalism to politics.
Okay.
Is there anything about that you don't want to get outside?
Okay, yeah. Well, I would say that one of those things I'm so proud of doing in the National Assembly, or at the National Assembly, was the passage of the Freedom of Information Bill. This is a project we started in the CLO, working with Lagos State NUJ and Media Rights Agenda. And initially it was passed by the 99 House, but Obasanjo vetoed it. And then when I was elected in 2003, we started again, we passed it, and Obasanjo vetoed it again. I was a member of the House Senate Committee, Conference Committee, that worked on the final copy, and it was endorsed, and Obasanjo again vetoed it. That bill abolished the Official Secret Act and make it possible for you to ask for government information about what is happening in government, and then if they don't give it to you, the court, the person will have to answer to the courts, Then eventually, the Jonathan administration signed it 11 years ago. I think recently we did an anniversary of that in Lagos. I don't believe the state should hide secrets from its citizens. But in the process of statecraft, like when we have military operations and we are fighting Boko Haram, I wouldn't want to disclose the strategies of our troops or your official privacy, your privacy. Because when there are basic things that are taught in journalism school, your private affair should be your private affair. And then I should also not disclose my source of information. I can't disclose that. I will not tell you. Sometimes even my wife says, I said, no, I won't tell you. She said, why now? I said, because I'm a journalist. Then you will laugh over it. I still believe in all those. If I say that in weekly column at 65, yeah, I do. I've done it for 18 weeks now. I'm still doing it. So I still believe in journalism. And I believe once you're a journalist, it's difficult to say I'm not a journalist. You can't run away from it. You have to just continue to think like a journalist, act like a journalist, walk like a journalist. Then coming to what Chido said about hope, efforts to destroy hope. Yeah, I saw that. I captured everything I could remember in the circumstance. You know, and I must say that a lot of information that you see in that book came from CLO publications. We did a lot of work in CLO. We did a lot of investigations, annual reports, we went to court documents, newspaper articles, reports. It took me about 3 years to complete. In fact, Ogaga was one of those who inspired me to write the book, and I acknowledge that in the book. So the press are here too. These are some of the people who read. He read the manuscript before it was even published, and you see his blog there. You know, so it was not easy. So Chido, this guy is covering me. So like I said, I made recommendations. If you look from page 594, I addressed the press. What I think the press should do, the judiciary, the National Assembly. And then I recommended that now, after the 2023 elections, we don't have the luxury of conducting another election again that will not meet the expectation of Nigerian people in 2027. And I said that all hands must be on deck, everybody should be involved to ensure that we conduct, it could be our last election in Nigeria if we don't pull off a successful election that is generally acceptable to the Nigerian people. I believe in democracy. I believe there is no better way of selecting leadership without outside elected people. And some of the research we did in CLO, we used our dialect to ask many people what they made, the word vote in their language, and the concept of vote. Why should you vote? What do you expect if you vote? And it wasn't much different from the Western concept of democracy. And people expect results. They expect that if you are given it, it's like you have been given a duty to execute a particular objective on behalf of the people. So if you are voted for, it's like a secret trust, and you must do it. You know, that is one of those things, and I now said that at the end of the day, our diversity is critical, and that Nigeria must be a home for all, not for some. You know, and that we should be respecting our common humanity, and also to build a nation that all of us can accept as our nation.
This discussion, yeah, thank you. Thank you. No. We've had enough of you. Go and eat your bandage. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very sorry that we're having to rush a lot of things. You know, we really lost time, and we have to be out of there about 6:30. Because later today we still have this fire. Okay, the fire won the Nigeria prize for literature. The $100,000 was won by the book called Fire. And the author is in she's joining us online. And we have people from the NLNG here, we have the manager here, we have the whole team here. I can't ask them to stand up, but they are here just for that. But we have a session that we ought to have taken. It's no longer in the room. Adewale Maja-Pearce and Reuben Abati. We are going to pair these two books in the same session, but we couldn't get Reuben Abati to